My message tonight is titled Fulfilling Your Destiny. Acts chapter 17, verse 26. From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the time set for them and the exact places where they should live. God did this so men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far from each one of us. Dear God, I just thank you for tonight, and please give me the words to say and use me as a testimony for you. In your name pray, amen. David sinned and fulfilled his destiny. A lot of people know and heard probably one of the most well-known stories in the Bible, the story of David, and how he got God's favor and became king. But David lost track of God and committed adultery with Bathsheba, and later had her husband Uriah killed in battle. I grew up in a Christian home, went to church my whole life, and just like Dave in the Bible, lost track of God when I was a junior in high school. One day in study hall class, a friend of mine named Paul, we're a little bored, and we're talking about what we're going to do on the weekend, and we came up with this crazy idea to break into the school. Usually when people think of breaking into the school, they think of throwing a brick through a window or kicking down a door and breaking in. But we figured out a way to just simply unlock the door and walk in. At that time, my dad taught, he was a sixth grade science teacher for 25 years, and we simply took his card and walked into the school, and we thought it was pretty cool. We got a high, and there was nobody around in the school at that time because it was, 11 o'clock at night. And next week we're sitting in study hall class again, and decided we'd try it again. And we simply walked in, but that time we ended up taking a few things, and make a long story short, went in the third time, and it was crazy and nuts. A couple weeks later, after going to a church service, I decided to call the principal and tell him what we did. I felt bad and called, and it was crazy because it was a good thing I did for me to be the first one to step out and do that. But my principal said, we knew it was you. We were going to call you tomorrow. So I beat him. I beat him to it, and but it for me to the situation was bad, and my dad was highly respected in the school community. He was like the Christian that did his job really well, and it was very, very painful for them. And so I definitely sinned against the community, but I can honestly say I had I conflicted a direct pain on my family internally. It was very hard for them. Even though I asked God for forgiveness and my parents for forgiveness, there's definitely consequences for what I did. And I was kicked out of school. This was at the end of my junior year in high school. I was kicked out, and then that summer went to court, and they sentenced me to 90 days in jail. They kicked me off prom court. Like I said, it was very hard on me, but then my family to see me go through that. But God had forgiveness and grace for me through that time. He had forgiveness and grace for my family. He let me back into school, which was a huge test for me. I got picked on literally every day, but I made it through that. And God was there. He let me back into sports. I finished my senior year in high school playing sports. I remember running out into the basketball court. I started varsity, and they called my name, and it was very hard on me. A lot of people didn't want me back into sports. They didn't want me back into school. I made the paper a handful of times, front page. So I knew people knew who I was, and it was really hard. But God was there and really helped me through that time. I worked for the Clark County Forestry and Parks. They didn't fire me. I was blessed, and they let me keep my job. And that was the same thing. Just a lot of people didn't want me still working there. They thought, well, how did this kid get the opportunity to keep his job? But because of my parents being Christ-like and people in the community letting me have a second chance, it really brought me, looking back at it, brought me one step closer to fulfilling my destiny, even though I sinned against a lot of people. David was sinned against in the Bible, and he still fulfilled his destiny. Saul chased him for years. I read the story a couple times this past week. I can't even remember how many different cities he fled to, how many caves he fled to, how many mountains he climbed to get away from Saul. But David followed God in that process. He had 2 chances to kill Saul during that period, but he felt led not to do that. And eventually, after having faith in God and following him through this hard time, David became king, and he was blessed for it. And Saul ended up committing suicide later. So, God led Saul to his death and not David. Like I said, David was definitely a victim, and through the hard time that he had, he pursued God, and he was able to make it through that. A couple years after the school incident that I went through, I got married. Got married at a young age. I was 19 years old. And our marriage was definitely built on sand and not a rock. And within 3 years later, we were divorced. My wife left me for someone at work. It was very hard. I didn't know what was going on. And that lasted about 9 months. And I really pursued God in that time. I was really fortunate to get a Christian mentor that really helped me through that. And my parents were definitely a strong backbone for me during that time. During that time, I was really challenged by my Christian mentor to really give her grace in literally every situation, and really put her needs before mine. We had one car, and she got the car. She picked whatever furniture she wanted. Just let her have anything she wanted in the house. I continued to stay in our condo, which we couldn't afford to pay for anyways to begin with. But I took that burden on and let her free. I didn't go after her for really anything. 9 months after kind of figuring out that mess, we finally got divorced, and the judge was looking at me like I was nuts because he knew it wasn't really 50-50. It wasn't like, she had half the debt. I hadn't. It wasn't, with debt, it wasn't split down the middle. I had the majority of it. But for some reason, I just felt led to do that. And later, looking back at it, everything happens for a reason. I'm going to read 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters, but David strengthened in the Lord. David was hit rock bottom in that story. He was leading his warriors to battle, and there was a situation where his soldiers, a lot of their wives and children were murdered. And so all of his mighty warriors were ready to stone him to death, and he had to turn to God for strength. When I was reading that and really trying to think of my situation, I really had to find strength in God, because God had a plan for me, just like he did with David. During my divorce, I looked towards God. I didn't have a TV, and it was nuts. I literally lost everything. I didn't have a TV. I remember staying up late and listening to James Dobson on the radio and reading my Bible. And just like Pastor Tom talking in church this morning, I ended up getting baptized soon before that. And looking back at it, that was really a turning point in my life when I did get baptized. From that point on, I really, looking back at it, I really could feel like I had the Spirit in me. And so it was almost like God was preparing me for this. So a couple years after I got divorced, I was still pursuing God, and I was really fortunate to get a job working at a financial institution. And usually, when you become a financial advisor, they do not want you to have a record. And right before I got that job, I had my 2 felonies expunged. And so God really gave me the grace to move on and move past that. But at the time, I really thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. Here I am working for one of the largest financial institutions in the world, and kind of a high-class job, and I really felt like that was going to be my career. But it wasn't, and after about 1.5 years of working at Edward Jones, they fired me, and I was almost relieved because I was almost at rock bottom. I couldn't pay for any of my bills. A lot of the burden that I took on from my divorce, it never left. I never was able to get ahead, and so after 1.5 years of struggling through that, when I got let go from Edward Jones, I was completely at rock bottom, and I prayed a lot, and I really was hoping that was going to work out for me, but God had another purpose. After they let me go, I called all my customers, which was only about 9, and one of them asked me, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I really don't know. I'm going to move up north and live with my parents, and apply for probably a job at a bank. And well, he said, well, that sounds like a good idea, but I have a business idea that I thought of, and of making saw blades. And years earlier, I tried remodeling, and I did not like saw blades. I mean, I didn't know how saw blades worked, and I used them, and I wasn't good at using them, and I mean, I failed at starting a business years prior to, but I had nothing else to do, and I started helping them out and selling saw blades online on eBay. And it was crazy because God really had a plan for me with selling saw blades, and over the first 12 months, I didn't get a phone call from anybody that I sent a resume to. Looking back at it, the blade business was growing, but I didn't really think of it at the time. But now looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I didn't get a job or a phone call from anybody like that. And it really has been a blessing. I've been doing saw blades now for 5 years, and we've literally taken over the world with this particular niche saw blade. Not only is the Imperial brand one of the biggest brands in the oscillating saw blades, but we have our competition calling us, wanting us to make blades for them. And so it really is a blessing, and God has had his hand in this. My parents have been praying for this. Multiple people have been praying for this ever since day one. And it's nuts because I look back at what I did through my divorce, and I never thought that I'd find a new wife that would love me and love my family, and he definitely came through. Just a couple years ago, I met my wife Stacy, and I really believe that because I did the things when I was exiting out of my relationship with my first wife, I really believe that he set this up for me and really blessed me for listening to him. Because my parents didn't lose faith in me, And because of their support that they've given me, we have a little boy, and he's named after my dad. So when I look at my dad's purpose and destiny in his life, I feel that because he's really taken himself out of the picture, he was able to fill his destiny through this hard situation. But David found strength in God to fulfill his purpose. A few questions here. Have you hurt anybody? Are they still in pain? Are you a victim? Are you still in pain? And are any of these holding you back from your purpose? Found a neat quote on forgiveness. Forgiveness. For those that wronged you, forgiveness means refusing for someone to pay for what they did, to forego conflicting anger on the other person, and to put burden on your shoulders and give it to God is much better than leaving the burden on the other person and never going away. And if anybody is going, everyone here has gone through a hard time, and if you've sinned anybody, being honest with yourself and dealing with the consequences, moving forward, putting God first in your life, it'll work out at the end. Same with being a victim. To this day, I never had that conversation with my first wife on what happened. I never put her in a corner and said, hey, tell me, admit that you did something to me. I never did that. And for my situation, really putting God first and letting him heal my heart and our relationship, it has really worked out. Even my wife states to this day, I've told her multiple times, I don't even remember a lot of things with my first marriage. It's literally like a different life for me. It's really weird. I can't explain it, but I believe that since there wasn't that, going after with anger and really letting God heal, it has really brought me to where I am today. So 3 steps to finding your purpose. Like I said, be honest, and be honest with yourself, be honest with the people around you and with God. And I believe once you're, like I said, if you've hurt anybody or you're a victim, just being truth to yourself is the first step. The second one is believing that God is a Redeemer and will deliver you through his grace and mercy. And third, after having that relationship with God and seeking him, asking him to serve, and ask him how to serve others. So that is pretty much it for me, but I want to end with just praying for everybody here. Dear God, I just pray for the people that came tonight. I pray for those that don't have a relationship with God, that you will work through them and witness in their lives, that they will find you. But I just encourage anyone here that is hurt or has hurt other people, if that's still weighing on your shoulders, I just pray that you help them, Lord, and help them find the first step in having that relationship with you. I also want to pray for those that do have that relationship with you, but are discouraged and they don't know what their purpose is. I just pray that you help them be strong and just keep moving forward, and pray that those people will know that in doing so they will find their purpose in life. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen.